Ms. Mazzarella?
Good morning. I'm Jody Mazzarella, 30-year resident of Bethel Island.
Pull the mic down a little bit.
More?
Yeah, thank you.
I can hear myself.
Thank you.
Okay. And anyway, 30-year resident of Bethel Island, and I'm here to clarify some misstatements from the April 26th meeting that I viewed on the video. But I had one comment for the gentleman down there. I don't remember his name. He talked about the importance of community within the Delta. I bought a conforming little cottage on Bethel Island and turned that $116 property tax bill. I built a Lindell cedar home with all the current codes, and I now contribute to $3,500 of property tax, of which they get probably, I think it's 15% more of my, for the property tax, go to redo the reclamation and fix the levees. But in the meeting, Phil, I believe you made a comment about Bethel Island and Narrow Bridge, and I had to bring some documents. C.C. Myers just completed that bridge. I'm bringing you a picture of what that looks like. This bridge was completed in 2011. It was a cost of $14 million. It's 863 feet long. It's 45 to 57 feet wide. It contains two 12-feet lanes, two bike lanes, and two 5-foot wide sidewalks, viewing stations, and decorative lighting. Also in that meeting, a comment about the people of Bethel Island did not pass the parcel tax. We as a country are experiencing the greatest depression we've ever had. Bethel Island and Contra Costa have been bombarded with extra parcel tax on a lot of things in the last 3 years due to the rising cost of everything to us. Contra Costa County is the number one in foreclosures in California. Bethel Island has also had a 25% increase in 65 or older citizens. Bethel Island pays a percentage of their property tax to repair the levees, which has been done since before I moved there. BIMID has an ad hoc committee to look over the budget. BIMID realized that they were spending beyond their budget, so they did not renew the contract for the district manager, and they also laid off one full-time employee. Now BIMID has an ad hoc committee to look into funding, which they have been successful in 2 of the 3 grants so far. We're an active community in the safety of our island, and we're actively looking and trying to find ways to improve our levees to PL 8499. I know that sometimes it's easy to repeat untruths, so we came here today to set the record straight. We have installed sirens in our community in case of flooding. We're active in emergency preparedness operator. We have an active preparedness operator, and the OES put on a major flooding exercise recently. We have AED stationed throughout the community, and we have emergency communication devices stations will also be throughout the community as well. We even put on an annual community emergency preparedness fair for the community, not just Bethel Island, but everybody who's interested in knowing. I know I speak for all the people on Bethel Island, but in the future, if you're going to talk about Bethel Island, we would like to be contacted so we can attend these meetings and voice our opinions. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Any questions? Mr. Nordhoff.
Excuse me. I ask you some questions before you leave the podium.
Ms. Mazzarella,
you mind?
If you would, please.
Yes.
We've had some discussions about the effects of a catastrophic flood, an earthquake, flood, heavy rains, all the rest of that, and the need for life preservers. Do you think that would be of any importance to you, or access to watercraft?
Most of the homes all the new constructions have to be built above the levee, and they have access to the levee. So if you're in your home and there's a flood, all you got to do is probably walk 20 feet.
As long as the levee is still there.
You're on the levee. Yeah.
As long as the levee is still there.
Right. Well,
Okay.
There's 15 miles of levee? Yeah.
So you can find a levee someplace.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And we have, we've had the communities. We know how to do the emergency evacuations. We've planned for boating, busing, and all kinds of things to remove the people of Bethel Island. We also have looking at our elders that are in the community that are not as ambulatory as some of us youngers. So we are actively looking at everything we can to protect our citizens and our infrastructure. All we do need is funding to help us get there, because that's what we want to do.
If you had some additional funding, where would you spend it?
We
On
would-
safety, strictly on personal safety.
As a citizen, I would assume we're going to be putting on rock and raising the level to the PL 8499, but our reclamation district manager's here, and I would imagine that he could answer that question better.
So you would spend any additional funding on the levees to make them safer. You wouldn't take any other precautions or have any other safety measures for the older people and the disabled?
We've done quite a bit, and it's included in our plan.
Well, wait, stop. We're recording this and broadcasting it.
My name's Anthony Brzezinas again, and I can help answer some of that. We just received a grant for emergency communications that Jody alluded to, and we're putting up communication stations strategically placed at the major business marinas around the island. We're also looking at better evacuation plans. The Bethel Island Municipal Advisory Council, BIMAC, is working with safety development and safety notification of our citizens. But as Jody said, the reality is 90% or better of our population live adjacent to the levee. Just like my property, I bought a home that was built in the early 50s. Unless the actual breach happens at your location, when the sirens go off, you have time to get out and get up to your close proximity levee. And at that point, we start to arrange evacuations with what vessels are available. Bethel Island Municipal Improvement District has a small boat that we're going to utilize to patrol, and naturally mobilize with our marina partners on the island to get vessels out and try to evacuate people. The biggest struggle we have is our mobile home community on the islands with our elderly population, and that is a continuing struggle that we don't have a complete answer for.
How
but
far
we would
away?
like to do that.
How far away is that community from the levee?
There's no community on the island that's more than 3 miles away from a levee top.
3 miles is a long way.
We have multiple mobile home small communities on the island, and most of them reside within a mile of the levee. There's very little in the central part of, I wish I had the map up there, in the central part of the island, especially on the west, from the center point of where Bethel Island Road divides the island, west is mostly rural ranches and vacant ag land. And then on the easterly side is a higher density population. And then when you get close to the levees over by some of the marinas and recreational areas like Sugar Barge and things like that is where the mobile home parks reside. And they have a direct route. Unless the breach happens there, they actually have direct route driving up to the proximity of that levee.
So as I understand, as long as there's ample warning, even the aged and the disabled who live on the interior of the island can be provided for.
For the most part, yes. I mean, it's not perfectly adequate for 100%, so I wouldn't want to answer that question to say that absolutely they're provided for, but for the most part, yes, we have organizational structures in place to get out and work with those business owners that manage those mobile home parks, and we've encouraged them, and they're active participants within the advisory council to get communications to those elderly citizens and formulate plans to get them out.
Now, have you ever envisioned a circumstance where you would find destruction without any warning at all?
Well, almost all of the circumstances envisioned would happen without warning, except for a high water, super wet year where you just see some deterioration happening. I think most of the plans that we've looked at are for catastrophic failure, either due to earthquake or some other disaster that would breach the levee at a given fissure or some other focused destruction.
I guess I'm unclear. If you have people living on the interior of the island, 3 miles away from a levee, and you have catastrophic levee failure with flooding without any warning, how do you provide for those people?
If we have catastrophic failure, and I need you to really clarify that, but I'll clarify it and let me see if I'm understanding what you're saying. That would be wholesale failure of the levee and multiple breaches. there is not a plan in place to adequately take care of some of our elderly residents in those mobile home areas. If you look at the history of the Delta, the history of Bethel Island, Andros Island, or such, most of the failures that have taken place due to flood or high water activities or some other construction activities causing a focused
But
break.
never an earthquake.
Earthquakes have not been damaging to the levees at this point. And if you look at some of the science is saying that the levee structures that we have, if we strengthen the riprap side on the water side and we get the slopes in line on the land side, those are actually flexible structures that could probably withstand an earthquake better than a rigid structure. So there's science going both ways on massive earthquake and what that would be as far as the destruction level. Now, if it created some type of tsunami wave through that area, I haven't seen any science to help us with how that would affect us.
Yeah, I don't really think there's much possibility of a tsunami.
Well, there
being as
is,
far inland as
not
you are.
tsunami from the sea, but if you look at water flow failure, those water flow failures, if you have wholesale like Bacon Island or something like that, if you have multiple islands that fail, you will have what you could consider interior tsunami effects. So that is not an absolute correct statement that we wouldn't have some type of tsunami effect within the Delta. It wouldn't be an ocean tsunami, but you would still have the same type of effect.
A big surge from a
big
failed
surge,
reservoir
yes,
or
sir.
something like that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, your levees right now are not prepared to withstand an earthquake. You said it would take
Well,
new construction of a different sort to make them readily.
Well, I disagree. If some of the
able to do
science
that.
I've read, using the riprap and the natural soils that have been used over the history of the Delta to compact these levees, earthquakes have shown to be probably less of a problem than high waters, floods, or other surge problems, because the flexibility of the structure would allow it to withstand most of the waves, unless, of course, you were centered, above a centered epicenter. And the reality is, it's not just levees, but none of our constructions to date have proven to be 100% effective against epicenter catastrophes.
Yeah, we all prioritize things important to us, and I think for me, number one is the protection of human life. And if I can envision a circumstance that could lead to catastrophic failure and would be just, it wouldn't be economic to provide against that, if we can find another levee. But what we have to do is respond in such a way, very quickly, in a very organized fashion to prevent that loss of life. Is there anything you would do differently under those circumstances than you're doing now?
Well, are you asking me to respond to unlimited funding to develop plans? Then sure, I would do a lot of things
I wish
differently.
I could, but I think
But
it would
I
be
can't
unrealistic to ask you to do that.
Then
Try to be realistic in your response.
Perfectly fine, but to answer your question is predicated on what type of funding mechanisms are available, what type of programs in the grant areas are available, what type of shared costs are available. In order to develop an answer to your question, I have to have a realistic equation.
Okay,
Otherwise,
let me
I'm
give
just
you a
surmising.
hypothetical then. I'm worried about these older people in the middle of the island in an RV park or in a home for the aged, about their being rescued or rescuing themselves in that event. I mean, does it take boats strategically placed, rafts, life preservers? Being realistically,
it's no
economically.
different. It's quite honestly no different than you have in the Greenhaven Pocket area here in Sacramento. And I don't see you having boats placed around that particular area. And that destruction is going to be more catastrophic than any destructions we have on Bethel Island. So I think your question is a little bit pointed and unfair, because nowhere in California along the 160, along the 4, along all the sloughs and byways within this entire Sacramento, American, San Joaquin River area have we developed adequate protection to evacuate in the event of a catastrophic failure.
Now, I don't wish to offend you by using Bethel as an example. I'm trying to learn about the Delta, and I'm trying to take Bethel
I
as
understand, but I'm answering
representative of a lot of other islands, be they legacy or not legacy, that have a level where people are living and working below the surface of the water.
But we have that throughout from Sacramento, above Sacramento, all the way down to San Francisco. We
And
have
would
that
the
from
response
Stockton
be
all
any
the way
different in
down.
those places than you would take?
Yeah, I would love to see a comprehensive program put in place by CalEMA and some other agencies that are absolutely strategically designed and formed for this type of response. But to this date, I have got very little cooperation from CalEMA or anybody else to help us develop the catastrophic evacuation scenarios that you're discussing. I know they have some plans in place, but nowhere along any of the levee systems from the entire river system, including the Delta, have we got, in California, do we have adequate emergency evacuations plans in place to protect what you're asking us to answer you for Bethel Island alone?
Yeah, all I'm trying to do, and I'm not trying to put
And
you
we
on the
would
spot.
love to take part in that plan.
I'm not trying to offend you. I'm trying to use your knowledge as a local residents to see what specifically you or your colleagues would do to make it easier for yourself, to reduce the risk of drowning.
And let me share with you, first of all, I'm a local resident of California's river system. I've lived along the rivers in California my entire life here, which has been since the late 70s. I am new to Bethel Island. I'm not new to Andros Island. I did study the flooding that took place there, and that was a huge flood, but it took almost 4 days to inundate the entire flood basin. And those are the floods that are more predictable and more easy to plan for. But nowhere in my entire history in California have I seen any plan that would take care of a catastrophic failure due to earthquake or other natural or man-made disaster that would protect to the level that you're asking me to answer you on. So I don't even have anything that I could compare to say, well, I would love to have a plan like Sacramento has, or I would love to have a plan like Stockton
I appreciate your
has.
information and your efforts. Thank you very much.